What's going on, lifers? Welcome to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I am your host, Jake Thomas, and today's guest comes to us by way of the East Coast. She has over 24 years of experience dedicating her life to helping others achieve their best health. She comes with a diverse background combining chiropractic, psychology, neurofeedback therapy, functional medicine, and spiritual guidance. She offers a unique and deeply personalized approach to healing, whether you're struggling with chronic pain, hormonal imbalances, or looking to optimize your mental clarity. She is here. She's here with us today to guide you on a journey toward lasting wellness. Ladies and gents, without further ado, welcome to the show, Dr. Stephanie Rimka.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, Jake. We're finally doing this. You and I and our schedules were a little bit, hit or miss, you and I, but super excited. And I don't know if people are probably listening. Some might be looking. We look like twinsies a little bit. Kind of like it. Kind of like it. If I was a man.
Yeah, got the black shirt memo. Yeah. We were talking off camera before and joking about, I'll try this carnivore thing for 30 days. And here I am 7.5, 8 years later. Like you said, would you have ever imagined 7.5, 8 years ago that you'd be here now with the position that you've got as far as in what you believe in, what you feel, what you stand for, what you oppose?
Well, yes, I would have. So I didn't, when I did like the carnivore experiment, I was like, okay, everyone's talking about it. And as I looked into it, I realized I'd been leveraging that way of eating for quite a few years with a very certain subset of my population, of my patients. I just didn't have a name for it. I just knew all the Crohn's, ulcerative colitis folks did really well when I took everything away. And I'm like, well, that's where we're at. Bone broth and hamburger, and they just felt amazing, and I was able to recover them. And my goal was always to bring other foods back in, right? I didn't understand exactly what I was doing. And then when I kind of fell into this and looking at the anthropology deeper in the carnivore, I'm like, oh, there's a name for it. And I'm like, I've been doing that, but I didn't know what it was really. It just was what was working in clinical practice. You just take away all the plants and they got better. I wasn't maybe smart enough to put that together because I was a Walls protocol trained person. So Terry Walls with the MS, right? Like sure. Plant overload. So I was certified in that because I'm an MS specialist as well. And all my MS patients, I eventually, after like 2 years of that, I had to start pulling that away as well. And I turned them into carnivores and they all did better. So as I figured out the oxalate poisoning that was happening, the lectin poisoning was happening, right? So I'm not surprised when I started doing it for 30 days. I didn't have a radical change in the way I felt because I'd basically been like keto for, like a keto carnivore for 7, 8, 9 years or something anyway. So it was a super easy transition. I just was like, wow, this is so much easier because I don't actually like any of that stuff anyway. And I was only eating it because like my mother's voice is in my head that I'm supposed to eat a vegetable. Like, nobody really likes broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts. Like you have to do all this magical stuff to it to make it taste better anyway. Mm-hmm. So once I just was like, I could eat steak, hamburgers, and eggs all day. Like I miss nothing. This is fantastic, So I just kind of went with it. And in fact, I was one of those few people who actually gained weight. I gained quite a bit of weight in the first few months, but I looked at it as like I'm healing.
Yep.
And I just made a much better structure because I was coming off of mold illness after a couple of years of that and a couple diagnoses that, well, I'll just say, I talk about it a little bit, but I was diagnosed with MS and fibromyalgia. And so those are all gone as well. But I did a lot of stuff around that. I just didn't want to live in the consciousness of any kind of diagnosis. I'm like, you can take the diagnosis, shove it up your ass because I'm not living with that. I'll reverse everything. So it was helping with that, but I didn't even know what I was doing. It was just like, let me just do a 30-day thing, and it's made life simpler. Like, I don't want decision fatigue. I don't like to think a lot about what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to do. I just like to keep it really simple. Like the less choices I went to Catholic school. I wore a uniform my whole life. And so in the office, I wear scrubs. I just wear same thing every day, so I don't have to think about it. I don't want to waste my mental energy on stupid things. So I eat the same things and I'm super happy and I feel good. What's weirder is that I was a vegan for 12 years. So, yeah. So, I mean, that was a long time ago. I had let that go. So, but I felt like sick and stupid as a vegan. And, now I'm like a beast. Carnivore does make you feel as a woman like a beast for a while. You have this like aggressive, like this, like it's like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. I think I'm used to it now. It's my normal way. But looking back, I do remember those first few months. You feel like, like cougar, lion, cheetah, all of it. You're like, I'll rip you apart in the best possible way. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. Yeah. Oh boy, what do we
share a lot of things there. I went to Catholic school also as a vegan. Can attest to the gurness of the carnivore lifestyle, and that it kind of puts that, I don't know, I think it just taps into that, innate animalia that we've got, where it's tearing flesh and gnawing, and there's some blood and just grit.
And I think with a groundedness, like I think it's not, like I'm a woman, right? Which I know that's so controversial. And you're a man. We are not the same. So I don't know what exactly you felt, right? But I know that primal, it's confidence. It was a groundedness. It was a centeredness. It was a much more sacred, divine sense of myself than I ever had as a vegan. Right. And I did the veganism for all ethical, spiritual reasons because I was trying to become closer to God. Right. But that whole dogma is incredibly perverse because it takes you as far away from nature as possible. So it's part of the upside down clown world. And I fell for it. I was 19 in college. They handed me a pamphlet of a bunny being tortured in a L'Oreal studio, and I lost it crying. And I was like, I'm done, right? It doesn't take much to take a sensitive, empathic person and make them cry over a tortured animal and not eat it again, right? Yeah. So they know how to manipulate emotions really well. But I, as a carnivore, when I really upped up the meat and got rid of any of the plants and paleo pizza and stuff like that, my sense of calm, peace, but this radical certainty, strength, was different. It was just a knowing, and you can sense that. And it was like, that was, I would say I was much more attuned to my natural divine self as a carnivore for sure.
I kind of echo that on a psychological level, in the sense that you kind of touched on it before about freeing up energy in your mind and space and not being cluttered. All that ether that gets freed up. I remember when I first moved to New York, getting rid of my vehicle and thinking like, wow, this is so cool. For the first time in my life, I'm not going to have a vehicle. I'm not going to have the responsibility of driving. I'm not going to have to think about where to park. I don't have to drink and drive anymore. That's good. No stress, none of the responsibility that comes with that. And so I'm thinking, great, I'm going to free up like 20% of my daily capacity of brain units to explore the city, to get to know the lay of the land, because I'm going to need it, because it's a very intimidating place and everything's really fast. And if I had to think about parking and driving and insurance and gas and all that on top of that, it would suck. But when I got rid of the vehicle, it's like I had this whole new opening of experience to like be able to ingest and retain information in a much better way. I feel like this is like that, but like times a million. When you talk about the simplicity, the minimization of variables, I say, it's like reducing drag in an airplane. But we're just talking about easy flight, and not so much about the reduction of drag, but just the propulsion of thrust, like allowing you to fly the way you should. It's not about being superhuman or becoming so much greater. It's just about removing all the drag. So this is status quo to me. This is normal. This is human. This is not superhuman. We're not like, oh my God, we found the well of souls, and like all of a sudden we're going above and beyond. It's like, no. Everybody else is just in the deficit. We've all gotten so used to being inundated with drag and weight and just not being our, but not even fullest potential, but just like bare minimum, like again, ceteris paribus potential. And yet it's not there. But when you start to feel that, man, it's undeniable. like absolutely undeniable. And I agree with you in the sense that, to speak biblically, 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, right? Like, how does that happen? Well, three things that are used ubiquitously throughout enlightenment, stoicism, spirituality, any great thought leader, theologian, throughout recorded history: extended treks, prolonged fasting, and isolation. 40 days, 40 nights in the desert, all three. Did said person talk to God? Well, if you go 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, you tell me. You've earned the right to make that claim. And it comes by way of that removal of all the junk, I think. Mm-hmm. And how else can you do that? By feeding yourself in the best way, as far as with the least amount of inputs, to where your body doesn't have to constantly process, like, who are you? Where do you go? Okay, storage. Who are you? Okay, consume. Who are you? Like, it's all these variables. And even if they're good for us, if they're healthy for us, it's still a ton of things that have to get met, greeted, introduced. Okay. How do you process all that information? But this stupid thing between our teeth makes us love and lust, I should say lust, for experience and escapism. And this is the bane of humanity. This thing.
But don't, but listen, it's also one of the most wonderful, it's a very unique muscle.
Oh, it's an important one.
I don't denigrate any part of the avatar. I think everything that we're made in is so gorgeous and divine. And the tongue, as you were pointing to, is a very unique muscle. It's the only muscle without, an attachment at the end. And it truly is one of the most powerful organs, muscles of pleasure that the system has. So I'm not going to denigrate pleasure, because we have pleasure centers in our brain, and I'm a woman and I have an organ that's completely dedicated to nothing but pleasure. So I know pleasure is required for an optimal life. So I'm not going to say the tongue is a bad thing and that we can taste delicious things is bad. I just think there's been a perversion in our modern culture over about taste. There's taste manipulation and, taste scientists and doing these concoctions that are not food, that have truly perverted people's normal physiology and their normal neurology of what it tastes good and what we would naturally be drawn to. So, I don't want to disregard the tongue, because that's how a baby finds everything in life. I'm a mother. I watch my son. Everything goes in the mouth. They have to figure out what the world is through the mouth. I breastfed a child for 3 years. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I like pleasure. People can overdo it because they've chosen perverse, cheap dopamine hits versus the real deal, something you really have to work for, right?
That's why she's the doctor, folks. Much better said, much more eloquently said.
Well, you said it a very masculine way. I think I just said it a feminine way. And so I need the masculine to say that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, honey, no, it's a good thing. See, like, that's what we're like. Oh, no, we're going to find the good in the thing. And you're going to find, like, well, the thing's going to kill you. So I'm going to kill it first. And I'm like, good, go kill it. That's your job. I'm not a man.
She's the doctor. Yep. Perfectly said. Perfectly said, broken down and mirrored out. Outstanding. You're right. Perverse is a great word for that. Kind of like the split between hedonic eating and homeostatic eating, to where it's so pleasure focused, pleasurely perverse maybe, as opposed to prioritizing what actually is feeling good, doing right, and should be.
Yeah, eating should be pleasurable. I'm not a fan of this whole food is only energy nonsense. That's a very kind of masculine way of looking. I'm a mother. I breastfed a child. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a pleasurable experience for the baby and the mother. It feels good to the baby. There's cannabinoids. The baby's getting high on CBD the whole time. Human breast milk has the highest concentration of cannabinoids of any food on earth. And then it's releasing these insane levels of oxytocin in me. It's like the woman, you look like you're on meth. I mean, that's what my ex-husband said to me. He goes, I swear to God, it looks like you're on heroin when you do that. I was like, I mean, I'm like, it feels fantastic. You're loaded with these drugs your body's making that make you feel amazing, relaxed, and no pain, and you're madly in love. I mean, that's food doing that, right? So breast milk is mother's love. So it makes total sense to me that food gets stuffed down and confused with love because it is pleasurable. It started that way. So I'm not one that's trying to, and it does get coupled with dopamine in the brain. This is how we are designed. And you shouldn't have to eat cardboard and be miserable. Food is a pleasurable experience. It does have sensuality and eroticism and love and bonding related to it. It's why we have all these traditions around it. Again, we've just gone a little bit excessive, as humans can tend to do. If a little bit is good, more must be better. And we've let corporations take over and disconnect us from our natural ways so much. Nobody in nature overdoes these things because you can't, because nature has its supply and demand set in stone for you.
Checks
right?
And balances, yeah.
Yeah, but the corporations and the manufacturing plants and putting in addictive things that make you crave and drive and keep eating and consuming, and you can't even figure out how to stop because the hormonal signals won't stop in the brain now. So people are being driven into it unknowingly, unfortunately.
Very unknowingly. And some knowingly and just willfully, sadly. Should have just prefaced that with, it's a shame to have something so sacred and pure as taste from an organ like the tongue be denigrated by the modernity of mass consumerism.
Yeah, by Mountain Dew and Oreos.
I can't,
I've seen people put Mountain Dew in a bottle and give it to a baby. I mean, you just look and you're going, I'm almost unsure of what to do in this moment. Like, can people be that stupid? That's the name of your thing, right? Yeah. They are that stupid. I'm dumbfounded by it.
It's different than when you see someone doing something, technically incorrect with exercise at the gym. You're like, man, I really want to tell this guy something because he's not doing this well, and it's not going to bode well for him. But seeing a mother giving an infant Mountain Dew, that would really put me at a crossroads.
Yeah. I mean, right? Because you're like wondering, what should you do? It's like watching a woman smoke a crack pipe, a pregnant woman or something. You're like, what is, and so, and then people go on this whole thing, like, and do some people have the courage to walk up and go, you're not supposed to do that, right? And then I've had some people be offended when they see a woman buying paint and they'll say in Home Depot, I've seen it happen. They go, you can't paint right when you're pregnant. And it's like, I'm getting it from my husband. It becomes this thing, like, what's the socially acceptable thing?
Sure.
Our tribal responsibility of taking care of each other, right? I'm actually a fan of people intervening and interfering. People say, well, it's none of my business. I'm like, it's all my business. Like, what are you talking about? If I see somebody beating a child or a dog, that's my business. Like, so I'm going to intervene. But it becomes tricky when you watch people giving a 6-month-old an Oreo. And it happens while also the child is holding a phone, watching some stupid Disney thing, eating Oreos. And you just look and you go, well, that's going to be ADHD, anxiety, panic attacks, diabetes, obesity. You see it coming. And then they come to my office and are all stunned and shocked and bewildered as to why the child is on 14 medications and suicidal. Really? We need to go back to what you did in the beginning. Because it's always right there. It's pretty much points on a line. It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah, I would say the statistics of the growing amount of early onset diabetes and childhood obesity would support that thesis, and the amount of kids now, and whether it's autism, ADHD, or otherwise, it supports a lot of that. Yeah. You talked about picking up a pamphlet and following the vegan mantra. I was influenced by a girlfriend. It wasn't for the ethics of animals or environmental consciousness. It was just curiosity to keep the household more civil. I was like, sure, why not? Let's try it. What did you have influence through your family of how to eat, how to live, in a good way or bad way? What kind of put you on the path of hey, veganism looks cool, number one. Obviously a pamphlet, but then.
Yeah, it wasn't my mother at all. She was very much like, you need to eat meat. my mom's favorite food was steak and hamburgers. So I was born in 73 and, some 70s kid. And I remember she'd go through her little, when she was my mom was always fit, very attractive. But she belonged to Bally's, victimhood, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah. She would take her little stuff. She played racquetball. Remember that? So, when she was trying to lose weight, we would see these moments. And she didn't talk about it, but we could just tell she was just eating hamburger or steak and a wedge salad. So she was doing like Atkins long before there was a name for it. But she was, these are back when Reader's Digest was coming to the house. I remember it was like the hamburger patty diet, And that's what she would do all the time. And she just always felt better. She's like, I just feel better with meat. And so she was a bartender. And so in Detroit, it's very blue collar. I'm from Detroit. And so like her customers, she would just be in dive bars, bartending, because she needed a flexible schedule to take care of us. And so she could quit her job whenever she needed to if we got sick, because that was her life, single mom, 4 kids. But most of her customers were like mechanics and like the truck drivers or the butchers, these kind of guys. And they would always give her food. Like we got a case of frozen steaks for you, Teresa. Take them home for your kids. So we had so much kind of food given to us. So I remember we had all these steaks. Thinking, who has this many New York strips? Like we were really poor. Didn't make sense. We had this much meat. So that's how I was raised. So when I went vegan in college, my mother is really remarkable that she would take care of all of us. So like she would do the whole tofurkey, vegan everything, and the regular thing. So they made sure I had everything I needed and make sure. And then my nephew, when I was in grad school, was diagnosed with autism. He's 26 now. And then it was all, GAPS diet. So she can do the whole, Kim, just tell me what the baby needs. So tell me what he can eat. And then eventually we was like, let everybody just eat like Kyle. It's fine. But she would make me my vegan stuff. She would make, everything was done. She'd have 3 entire different meals. So she would very gently, occasionally, I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life, Stephanie, but I really think this is not good for you. And I think you should try to think about eating meat again. So she was being really sweet about it. My mother was very good at, letting us do our own thing, like become adults and become our own people. She wasn't smothering us, but she was the 4 food group kind of person. Our plates, that's what they taught. She believed you need some meat, you need like some potato or rice, and your vegetables and your fruit. And we pretty much ate that way my whole life. But meat was definitely a center point. And she didn't believe in like a cold breakfast, like cereal was like a dessert snack to her. And so she cooked. We always had eggs, bacon, sausage. Like she believed in a hot breakfast. That's how we went to school, with real food. And we had a lot of milk. That's back a milkman used to come, like the truck. And so she told us you always can get milk and ice cream. The one dessert we could have was we had a crap ton of ice cream all the time in my house. She's like, that doesn't really feel like that much of a dessert because you're getting protein and fat. That's what she said. She's like, what's protein and fat? It's milk.
Real, yeah.
So whenever we were hungry, it was like, Mommy, I'm hungry. Well, have a glass of milk. Like that, that was the constant answer. Well, have a glass of milk. That'll fill you up before dinner. Like you're not going to ruin it, but go ahead and have a glass of milk. I drank probably a gallon of milk a day myself as a child. Like we drank a lot of milk. We had gallons of it, like all the time, just, So she was very pro, like just kind of natural stuff. And that was back, it was butter. And the margarine stuff didn't start taking off until the 80s. And so when I was in high school is when the low fat thing was happening. And I did start doing that too, because I was like, oh, it's bad for you and you should have this instead, and no, have margarine instead. So I kind of, the T count book was out. I fell for that. So I'm like, oh, okay. I was 16, 17. So I went through a tough period there where I was like the low fat, not to lose weight, just because I didn't want heart disease. It's what they're telling you, right? And then the vegan in college, and I did that for a long time. And my health was devastated over it. So I went back to and said, Mommy, you were right. I made a big mistake. I fell for that, and and now I'm like, I feel a lot better eating meat. The only time I kind of deviate is, I'm Indian, part Indian, so I do eat curry. People are like, listen, I'm going to eat my mom's curry. Like, she ain't going to be on this earth forever. So whenever she makes curry, I'm eating it. I'm like 95% carnivore, except when it comes to curry. but that's in my blood. So listen, my DNA needs curry.
That's fair. I'm
Yeah. So she just wasn't a health nut. She was just like smart and common sense. You know, we had a fever. My mom put hats on us, gave us a hot toddy, and put more blankets, said sweat it out. You know, she didn't give us Tylenol. We had Tylenol. We had stuff in the house, like if it was real bad. But in general, she was kind of still doing the stuff her mother and grandmother did. And they were, you know, my grandmother was born on a dirt floor in a farmhouse in Texas. So it didn't even have a birth certificate because they didn't give black people birth certificates then, right? So it was drink some tea, get high. Oh, good. Sweat it. You have a fever? Good. A fever. I was taught a fever was good by my mother. And you sweat it out. That's what everybody did back then. Then suddenly, my generation, I don't know why people my age started drugging their children so much. You know, like, why didn't we? I did the same thing my mother did. Yeah. You know, so my son never had a Tylenol. My son never had an antibiotic ever in his whole life. My son never had a vaccine. My son has his whole penis. I didn't cut it off, you know? So I don't know what happened to my generation where they suddenly thought brownies were breakfast, Tylenol should be given for everything, pizza's dinner. You know, we ordered pizza, but it was like a special thing. Like, ooh, we're going to have a pizza party. And that didn't happen every Tuesday and Thursday because we were busy. You know, it was a different time. And so the having to work 18 million jobs, I think the way they've used money and financial slavery to make people have to work so much and not be able to be home with their children is why nobody wants to cook anymore, because they're exhausted, you know. But I grew up at a time when my mom cooked every day. We had hot dinner every day, you know. There was not fast food. That was like a special treat after church. Maybe we could get White Castle. And that was like, ooh, we're going to get White Castle, you know. And report card day, we could go to Burger King. That's what it was like. Now people just do it because they're like, these poor women don't even know how to make eggs, which is sad, you know?
Yeah, I know some of them.
They think eggs come from Starbucks. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I know some of those too.
Yeah, so no health nut. She's a smart, common sense, tough. My mother is a badass. She's real smart. She's real tough. She just had some hard choices. She should have went to college. She should have, you know, but life made some different turns for her. So.
Well, it sounds like you got pretty well grounded with what was instilled with you then.
Yeah.
You think that's a lot of the inspiration that carries through in your practice and what you pivoted from, I should say, you know, like obviously those soft, occasional conversations of, hey, Stephanie, you know, do your thing. I respect and support what you're doing, but maybe you should try. Like, you think enough of that is what you said you were 12, 13 years vegan, right?
Yeah, I was 12 years vegan, 14 years total vegetarian. So I was 2 years this vegetarian before that.
So when did the house start to crumble, and why?
So I guess I'm not great with time and space. So I'm 51. So I guess I was in my 30s. My son is 18. So I don't know, do the math, however old I was when I got pregnant or whatever. I was fat. I was probably, I don't know, 50 pounds fatter than this or something like that. 40, 50 pounds. I don't know. And I was tired. I was exhausted. I would deal with some acne. And I was telling most of my friends, usually I hang out with, are about 20 years older than me. So I was in my 20s or 25 or 30 or something like that. My friends are 45 and 50. And I was telling this group of women about, like, God, my sleep is so jacked. And I was giving them all these symptoms, and they all stopped. They go, Stephanie, that sounds like menopause. I was like, what? And I went, it does sound like, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm young, whatever. And they're like, yeah. And they go, yeah, but I don't have a period every few months. Sometimes, I mean, I was kind of explaining it like that does, because I couldn't sleep. It was like this sleep and hot and all these weird things. And I'm getting depressed. I'm like, And I was telling them about it. And they are like, honey, that's not normal. like, that's what we're going through. And we're 55. Like, you need to go get your hormones checked. So they basically, through their encouragement, and made me go, yeah, like, really? Like, I kind of kept how uncomfortable I was to myself. Like, almost all vegans, we learn to lie because you're so committed to the dogma. Like, I wouldn't wear leather belts or shoes. Like, I was like in it. I lived it, right? I would ask the restaurants if you're my wedding was catered vegan. I had 2 restaurants from Atlanta fly it into Charleston. Like, I was hardcore. Okay. And my ex-husband was like, well, my dad's like, your dad can eat the fake shit. He's not eating a steak at my thing. I mean, I was hardcore. So, going through that, you lie about what you really feel like. And so finally, when they did the whole labs, and I'm like, I had to tell, the endocrinologist, and I was very blessed to have a very good endocrinologist and a geneticist. They ran the whole thing. They're like, oh my God. So first of all, when I said they found out I was Indian, they go, wait, you're Bengali? I said, yeah. They go, oh, we need to run a whole gene panel. Turns out I had celiac. I didn't know that. They go, this is a high propensity in your line. You shouldn't be having bread. Well, as a vegan, I was eating so much gluten and soy because I was eating fake everything, fake burgers, fake sandwiches, fake tofurkey and whatever, right? And tofuti, and it wasn't real food, really, So they ran that, and it was like, oh. They go, so like, you're an atypical celiac and your entire endocrine system is destroyed. So I had no thyroid hormones. I had no testosterone. Well, testosterone I did had PCOS, so my testosterone was high. No estrogen, progesterone. So basically they're like, you're infertile. You're already in menopause. We need to see if we can kickstart that. You can't have children. So I was super sad, crying. My sister even offered to carry a baby for me. Okay, like she said, you need to get on it right now, Stephanie, though, because I'm 8 years older than you, and like it's got to be had now. If you need me to do this, I can do it. I don't mind it. Like I like having babies, but we need to get it done. I was like, seriously? And she's like, I'll do it for you. I was like, oh my God, you're the greatest sister on earth. So needless to say, it was in this conversation with them, and they were just a husband and wife team. They handled me so beautifully, and they said, we understand this is so hard because you did this for spiritual reasons, and we get it. And she was even though a PhD geneticist, she's also teaches meditation, and they're woo woo, like me. So they spent a lot of time going over all of it with me, and I had to look back and say all the times I had to fast. So I loved fasting. I loved water fasting. I had done many 10-day water fasts at that point, and since I was like 22, 23. So I loved it, and it made sense. Like, no wonder I like fasting so much, because I'm not eating the stuff that's hurting me. I felt best when I didn't eat at all, because everything I was eating was soy and gluten, and no protein, really, right? So I'm like, oh, and then I had done a few mission trips, Costa Rica and Mexico and Brazil, with doctors when I was a student and taking care of people, and I had to eat meat and stuff when I was there, because they're cooking for you and just doing stuff, and you really can't say no. So I learned to just be like, baby Jesus, or what am I supposed to do right now? I'm just going to eat the food. I'm going to say thank you, be grateful. So when I would go on these mission trips, I would eat all, I had no choice. I mean, they look at me like, how are you going to do? I'm like, I'm not vegetarian today, I guess. I'm eating whatever this is in front of me, and obrigada. I just say thank you, and I just eat. Everybody expected me to death. Yeah, they expected me to have GI problems and like the messed up. I felt better than I always felt amazing on mission trips. I still didn't put it together. I didn't want it to be that it's because I'm eating the meat. You know what I mean? Like, other doctors are dropping, I'm like, I'm good. They're like, what? And then they see me eating ice cream. I'm like, listen, I ate like fish sperm today. I don't even know what I ate. I'm going to eat the ice cream. I'm eating all of it because whatever. And now give me a beer too. I mean, it was like that. I could do anything on these things. I'm like, that's strange. So when they said all of it, it kind of all came forward. And about 5 other doctors had told me, Stephanie, you've got to stop. You're killing yourself. And I really, Jake, had to look at, why am I actually okay with punishing myself? Like, it was almost abusive. Like, my self-hatred and my shame over some stuff, I had to really grapple with, why have I been okay with feeling so bad and basically saying this animal's life is more valuable than my life, And I had to look at that. And it came from a lot of my childhood shame, feeling like I was a mistake and I shouldn't have been here. I ruined the family. My father went to prison because my mom was pregnant with me. I mean, I had a lot of guilt over my life, even like I ruined things is how I felt. And I was making up for my life, my whole life. Like, I'm going to prove to you either I should die and I should just kill myself, or I'm going to prove to you I'm supposed to be here. So I'm going to do some good shit. I struggled with this as a child all the time. So I just had this moment, and it was like this vision, and it was a lion that came to me and kind of talked to me. It was in this whole meditation space and just gave me this permission of, you don't judge me for killing the gazelle. And I said, no. He's like, then you have to stop, because you can't help people unless you get strong again. So in that conversation with them and the meditations, lion coming to me, which I know sounds crazy, but I don't care. I started eating meat. And I kind of went right to paracone diet. I went to salmon. I was like, listen, I'm going to go to salmon. It doesn't have a face. Exactly. It's not furry. And I hate salmon, but I'm going to go fish. 3 days of that and no gluten and salmon. And it was like Wizard of Oz, Technicolor. The whole world became rainbows and unicorn farts. I was like, what? I didn't know. And I remember looking at my partner and my girlfriend at the time, and I looked at her like, and just kind of explaining what I was feeling. She was, honey, that's normal. I was like, what? I just lived in such a cloud of gray, depression, darkness that I thought that was what everybody felt. I thought everybody kind of wanted to die all the time. And we just all were kind of pretending, and we just didn't talk about it. And in 3 days, I remember it. And it was like I was overwhelmed with the difference of how my brain lit up, and the world became color. I could see rainbows again. I could see magic again. I saw hope again. And that was it. I said, I will never touch that stuff again, if that's what was making me feel like this. And back then I was blaming just the gluten. I wasn't really giving the protein the credit too. So I had a poison I had to get rid of, but I had to put the healer in. And so it was much later that I was like, oh my God, it's the protein, But it took me a while to figure that part out, because my brain took a while to get back on. My cholesterol was 127, 132, and they were happy about it. Wow. But she looked at it and said, you're depressed. Ugh. And I was like, well, and she was like, nobody with this number feels good. I'm like, you're right. But she was the first doctor to say that, to tell me that's too low. That's a problem. So she changed my whole career. And then I actually mentored with her for 10 years. She trained me. I learned to do what she did. So they changed my life, and they changed the way I practice. So it changed everything. And I'm super pro cholesterol. I'm super pro meat, because I'm pro neurology. I specialize in mental health problems, and I cannot get a person better. I no longer will take any vegans or vegetarians in my practice. You will convert, or I will not see you. It's as simple as that.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
It's deep. I mean, that's the real deal.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, so 6 months after I went, 6 months after I got pregnant. And my ex-husband was like, I thought you couldn't get pregnant. I go, that's what they told me. And so I called
tell the sister we're good. Call it.
Yeah. It was I called the 1-800 number on the test. I'm like, they kept saying it, ma'am. The plus sign means pregnant. I was like, no, but they just kept trying to be like, yes. Yeah. And I'm like, I called that same doctor. So I just took a pregnancy test, and I thought this couldn't happen. And she's like, stop taking the estrogen, stop taking all of it right now. And when you fly back, we'll do a blood test and just confirm. Just maybe it's a false positive, but just stop taking all the hormones. I went, okay. And so basically my organs had, all my endocrine glands had shut down. They said, well, if anything's going to kickstart this back into high gear, it'll be this. So you went from bottomed out, and now you're going to have to make big things. So it was an 8.5 month bed rest pregnancy, high risk. I was hemorrhaging blood for 10 straight weeks every single day. I fell down 2 flights of stairs. I was in the hospital more times than I can ever recall. I had 3 high-risk OBs and a neurologist on call for my delivery. So it was very dangerous. I thought I was going to die, thought I was definitely going to miscarry. And I have a beautiful 18-year-old son. So a lot of that was stop eating a poison and get on the meat train. So I ate more meat than anybody can imagine in that time. And I had a big deficit to come back. 14 years of vegetarian, and had only been eating meat 6 months, and I had to make a baby. It wasn't easy. So.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't talk about that very much. It was the hardest time of my life, but yeah, it was worth it.
God, thank you. I need a second to take that in too. You know, there's a lot of egoism and tribalism and just flash trend and popularity that, you know, how we even connected, right? The algorithm, say, connected us because of common interests, whether those interests are controversial or antagonistic, provocative, you know, whatever the reasons are. The buzzwords are mostly sexy. You know, they're cool and appealing. Yeah. It's provoking, you know, so that's interesting to someone, but like to hear it like that, that's not you know, the banner on the novel that you're gonna grab off the shelf and go, oh yeah, I'm gonna read this one. No, that's not like a joy read. That's like, that's one that someone would pass over next to the Holocaust survival book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I don't know if I'm in the mood for that right now. Like that's not a fun, I don't have the right words for it. Yeah. Like I can't give it the right words. I can't give it the dignity it deserves with the right wording because it's so.
It was the greatest gift ever. It was the greatest lesson in surrender. I had to learn a level of surrender that no meditation retreat. No, I've taken all kinds of personal development courses. I'm on stages teaching international development courses, doing inner child and gestalt work when in my 20s. I've been doing Tony Robbins and the Forum and EST work for decades, and nothing will bring you to understand surrender like that, like facing like, well, this might be, and I just no control. I'm like, I am clearly not in control. I am going to have to let all of that go. And it's completely changed. And then level of gratitude and presence, like it's really unreal. I thought, I don't need to read Eckhart Tolle's Power of the Now. I know.
Great book.
Yeah, great book. That is the most boring book on planet Earth.
Well, to watch him narrate it.
Oh my God! I tell people, isn't it awful?
Oh. It's like taking courtship advice from Robert Greene. Watching him give it, like reading it is great, but when I watch him, I'm like, how are you telling me about sexual attraction? How? I was like, no offense, man, but like you can't be telling me this.
Exactly, it's hard. Like I don't want to be disrespectful to what it is, but I'm like, you put that on for 3 minutes, and you're like, oh, I don't even know what's happening.
And the visual, it does not help. The visual,
all of it. I know.
How can you be the person telling me about sexual chemistry and courtship? No, like I wouldn't take advice from you on that. No, I'll read your book in my own words. You know.
Yeah. I even found the book boring. I found that to be one of the most boring books ever. I'm more of a Mark Manson fan. I'm more of a Goggins fan. You know, like a little bit more.
Bret Easton Ellis, little Bret Easton Ellis, maybe.
Who is that? Who? No, I don't know who that is.
Laws of Attraction in the.
Oh yeah.
No, that's a fun one. American Psycho is a great one to listen to, especially just walking around like casually and during the day, hearing about people getting heads chopped off and heads being used for fornication and whatnot. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's yeah. That's what I say to men. You remember I'm a woman, right? Like, why? I don't want to know about that.
This is taking fun times.
I'm just kidding. You're good.
I'm stoned right now hearing that because it's like I said, most people I talk to, most people I know, even people that have, legitimate, deeply rooted health concerns and reasons, but like to take the full on do or die plunge.
Yeah.
It's rare air. It's rare, and not just something for yourself, but thinking about for family. To think like, I will not be able to do this without doing this. This doesn't exist. Pregnancy doesn't exist. Motherhood doesn't exist unless I take this chance, which isn't even guaranteed.
Yeah.
I love the kind of split decision of things, and I think so much in the world we strive for surety in our decision making, and we try to mitigate as much risk as possible based on that. So where we'll argue with ourselves when there's there's two options. Option A is guaranteed not going to work. Option B has a 1% chance, or whatever, 10% chance. But option A is guaranteed absolute zero not to work. So it cannot hold a fraction. Never. But 0.1, though small as it is, could be the denominator of a fraction. It could support something above it. But that is not enough for, I think, for most people to want to give in on or go with because of the risk or fear of failure, or that it's not going to work out in the comfort of what's currently there, even though it is definitely not working.
Yeah.
Is something that's easier to side with, because taking that chance and surrendering victimhood, abandoning the role that comes with being able to be a patient, and especially when it's all all the drudgery that you had to go through to get to where you were preceding your conversion, let's call it, that's an identity. I mean, that's 13, 14 years of 14 years of vegetarianism, 13 years of veganism. It's dedication. It's all the lying. It's all the internal dialogue of deception and manipulation, denial. That's a adverbial extremes across the board in many ways. Mm-hmm. Even when you're presented with your health, your life, your desire for motherhood depends on it, you still question it, or you're still not totally ready to go for that. What would you say to someone that's not even remotely close to that, in the sense that maybe they're dealing with their own sense of depression, they're dealing with mild forms of anxiety, they're dealing with maybe some self-induced types of, I don't want to call it MS, but something on a cellular level. They haven't lost an appendage, they're not missing an arm, but they've got some circuits that are closed that should be open, or some open circuits that maybe should be closed. And they're arguing with that. They're clinging to victimhood. They're clinging to the status of being a patient because it's an identity that they know and that they're comfortable with, and they're afraid to leave that because they don't know what it feels like to not be that. And the fear of change is greater than the fear of current. What do you say to something like that? And I'm speaking to probably people younger than us when I say that.
Yeah.
Men, women, irrespective. But just, that's where I see that's where I see people that could benefit the most value from a story like yours.
Yeah. Well, there's two different groups there, really. I'm going to tease out one subgroup that you said. So there's, you're sick and uncomfortable. We're in some type of pain and discomfort and distress. That's one group of people, and that's a lot of people. That's the overwhelming majority. Then there is the attached to victimhood, right? The victims and the martyrs. They're not necessarily the same, okay? Like, some of these people are this, but not everybody who's in pain and suffering is attached to victimhood by any means. So the victim martyr group of people, what happens with everybody with pain and suffering, if it goes on long term, if it becomes chronic in any way, what has happened is the secondary benefit, the secondary gain of your illness, diagnosis, pain, and suffering outweighs you getting better, right? So you're getting some secondary gain from this. I got a lot of gain and attention and appreciation and admiration for my veganism. I converted lots of people. People respected my discipline tremendously. Like, they were like, wow. They were impressed. I would go to conferences and I just wouldn't eat for 3 days. I'm like, well, no, I don't cheat. I don't do that. they would talk about it, like where my will and my commitment and discipline came from. So I got a lot of attention. I got a lot of good things, despite me physically not feeling well. Okay. So that was a secondary benefit of me feeling bad. Now, I didn't use feeling, they didn't know I felt bad. I didn't tell anybody, right? Some people, every ache and pain and every misery they have. They are very happy to tell you about how hard and miserable their life is, right? They're like are proud of how hard it is for them, okay? It's their badge of honor. And many people, it's what makes them special in the family. So why would they want to this is the only way they get mommy's love or daddy's money. I know people who have a diagnosis, they haven't had a job in like 10 years. They go on more vacations than I do. And I got like 7 fucking businesses. I was like, what is she talking? They don't even work. It blows my mind. So victims and martyrs who get their secondary benefit is so high to the point some of them don't even have jobs. They have disability, or they have parents taking care of them, or husbands or wives taking care of them. That is a very difficult group of people to help. I don't enjoy working with these people. Okay. This group, we're going on, if they come on, so the only way, Jake, I'm going to talk to that person is if they've given me some money, basically, because they're going to have to find some energetic exchange with someone to say, even though I get so much from this, I know I'm starting to think I'm losing too much, and I need you to come in and do something. They don't really know what they're doing. To break up that thinking is going to be painful for them. It's going to cause some confrontation. I will be hard on them. I will push against that shell. I will push against this thinking. They won't like what's about to happen. I'm going to tell them, you're not going to like this. But if you want to get to what you see me or this one who you admire, I've got to break through your addiction to your victimhood. And this isn't going to feel good, but eventually you're going to feel incredible. Okay. So that's a very different conversation. And I don't think most of those people are ever helped by a free podcast. Maybe every now and then, maybe it'll motivate them to go get help, but they have to have a lot of skin in the game to look really hard at themselves and let go of the comfort blankets they've established, and their relationships are going to have to change. Okay. So again, this is like somebody who's on disability. If they're on legal, like that's very hard to get that person better. They get free money for being broken and sick. Like, how hard it is to get them to work again? Yeah. Get better means I have to get a job, and I have autonomy and agency over myself. I don't know if it's worth it. They're not saying this consciously, but that's what's in the unconscious script, right? So that's a different group. They're hard. So this other group, pain and suffering, I want just me saying, listen, you need to look at, I say it, you're getting stuff from this. What are the secondary benefits that you're getting, right? And we need to start listing that out and saying, you need to be willing to give this up. So what could be possibly the benefits you get over here? So I'm kind of black and white with them to make them start going into it. I do a lot of things in the office. I have some of it. So take some courses with me, because I do a lot of visualization, a lot of unconscious scripting, a lot of imprinting my psyche. I say they need to find someone very, very strong to work with. Someone who has incredible conviction, because basically I can imprint inside your unconscious with my mind. I can start changing the scripts based upon my certainty, based upon my view of you. So I've got to start co-creating the reality with you, and I can do that in sessions. I definitely can do it with things like hypnosis, deep states neurofeedback, where you go into a deep hypnagogic state and I'm rewriting your unconscious mind. We can rewrite your unconscious with things. So deep states neurofeedback is incredible. Psych K is a great technique for this. Hypnosis with a good therapist is excellent at doing this. Going into the unconscious, cleaning out the cassette recorder that's on repeat, telling you that this is a good thing for you. You just picked up a bad script, and we need to get rid of that and help you put a new one in. So one, it starts in the mind. That's where it starts. And it kind of have to start there, because they don't know how to be able to make a choice to eat good health. They're like I was doing. I was punishing myself. I thought I deserved not to feel good. I was inherently not okay. There's a whole myth in my family that the Rimka name is cursed. Like we're bad luck. And I basically had to say, fuck you to my whole family. I will never change my name. And I will show you that this name is not cursed. Rimka will be known for goodness. I will not take that on. I'm not my grandfather. I'm not my great grandfather. I'm not my father. What they did has nothing to do with me. But because they robbed banks and went to prison and killed people, I'm supposed to be ashamed? I don't think so. I don't take that on. I rebuke that shit. But see, that was put on me as a child. Like I was supposed to be ashamed of who I was. So I had to unwind all that. I had to get clear all that. So I had to take courses. I had to see therapists. I had to get coaches. I had to work on myself. I had to strengthen my mind. I've been visualizing since I was in the 6th grade, very focused. I've been meditating since I was 20 years old. So I learned, and I love, personal development, books and courses. I just flood myself with that. I don't read anything else. I just am flooding myself with ways to tell myself, you're a good person. You deserve to feel good. It took a long time. So again, I would start with their mind. And I would say some of those techniques are shortcuts to this. I love Psych K. I love deep states neurofeedback. I love hypnosis with a good person. I know many of these people. And you can suddenly start changing things. And my favorite course that I offer is my visualization course. I think visualization is a superpower that people don't understand how potent it is in changing your neurology. You start changing the pictures you start making, and it's fun. Visualization is just imagination. Once upon a time, as little kids, we could all do it. And then something happened, and reality and whatever, and you let your imagination go away because you got into reality. What's practical? Well, maybe I'll become an accountant because I can get a good job. Like, no. Like, I'm very much into no backup plan. I'm like, well, I'll do this. A backup plan. A backup plan says you're going to fail. You want to be an actor, be an actor. You want to be a singer, be a singer. You want to be a violinist. I don't give a shit. Go. It's what I'm saying. Do what you want to do. Don't ever think about the money. And that will come if you're doing, going after something with excitement and passion. Money will always be there, So that's where I would start with those people. Really, I say, and then when I talk with them, I kind of more fine with the psyche, with the words, what my audience is, my language will change. So I don't feel like you could say something to everybody, because how I talk to a 13-year-old is not how I talk to a 30-year-old. It's not how I talk to a Hindu. It's not how I talk to a Muslim. It's not how I talk to a Christian. Yeah. Okay. How do I talk to a straight married woman? It's not how I talk to a gay man. Yeah. I will use different language with a different audience so I can help them with their behavior. It is very specific. So I don't know if I have a general thing, but that's where I would say start with the mind. There's a couple of those techniques. And I think one of the easiest is Psych K. Are you familiar with Psych K?
No. I'm thinking.
Oh, God, I love Psych K. So Bruce Lipton, how I heard about this 30 years ago, whenever I read Biology of Belief. So that's one of the foundational books, Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. It's at least 20 years old. I read this long time, maybe 30 years old. So PhD biologist, he's the one who started the concept that thoughts change the cell. Thoughts change the DNA. He was the one that was studying that. He was teaching medical school and realized he kind of did realized the cell membrane is more of the brain of the cell, not the DNA. He was the one that kind of wrote it. So that book, Biology of Belief, talked about Psych K at the end. And it was this technique, this guy, blah, 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 and he kind of helped. And so I looked it up, and there's hundreds of thousands of people trained in how to do Psych K, and they can do it remote with you. It's fascinating. And it's this weird Kriya yoga movements and statements. And basically you just say statements and to see if your conscious mind and your unconscious mind are aligned. Because a lot of us say, I am a queen. I deserve love. I deserve to make $100,000 a year or whatever. And then your body will say, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. The muscle test will break every time. So it takes work and sometimes pinpointing, cleaning that out, like where these came from. Because we do know most of the scripts you tell yourself were given to you by the time you were 2 years old. The way you think about men, women, yourself, the world, it's all there by the time you're 2. So everything up until that point, it's done. And unless you actively work to change some of those things are going to work for you, and some of them are not going to work for you, right? You got them from your mommy and your daddy, and they got them from their mommy and their daddy, and little life things that change. But so that's the kind of stuff I do with my patients, Jake. I always go into what's their first memory, and then I'm going to go do this whole thing with that. That tells me almost everything I need to know about what's in their unconscious is when as soon as they tell me their first memory. I can find everything I need to know about what's really driving that person from that story. And then we kind of unpack that. So for me, it's a very specific thing. But if I had to say take it easy, I would say eat more meat, get more sunlight, sleep more. You will have more sex, have good sex, lots of orgasms. That I need to clarify. And if I'm going to talk to the men, I'm going to say, men, can you slow down a little bit? Because she needs at least 15 minutes to warm up. Y'all need to slow it down. Slow it down. Seriously, eat more meat, get more sunlight, guard your sleep, have more orgasmic sex. That's my basic formula for healing almost everything. I'm not kidding.
Coach.
Yeah, so that'd be my short way of saying what I said, which was really long. But I believe it's the mind. I believe it all starts there.
Yeah, I feel like I guess in my yay, I'm going to say that notes of Pavlov, Freud, Dispenza, Chopra, Hill. Yeah, in the last few minutes, I'm just a lot of whiffs of good things there. Wow. And yeah, those 4 things I could just write on my arm, be like, oh yeah, more.
Yeah, you probably have them tattooed on your arm.
More sex for sure.
Listen, good sex. Now listen, not just any kind of sex. Good, slow sex. Can I make a book suggestion for all the men out there?
Please.
Slow sex. Daedon, I think is Daedon. Slow Sex is such a good book for men to read. I had 2 men tell me about this book, men that were married 30 years, and they said, this is the book that changed my life, saved my marriage, made me understand how to make love to a woman. And so I was like, what? They 2 guys in the same 2 days, completely different people. I said, this is the weirdest thing. We were just having, I've got to buy this book. And I listened to it on Audible because she reads it. And I was like, this book is so good. I know that. I know what she's saying. But the way she said it was like, everybody needs to read this book. And really, every man needs to read the book. I mean, because it just says it in such a way where it's what every woman is trying to tell men, but don't know how. And I always joke when I tell women, I'm like, listen, I blame women for all these men who are terrible in bed. Why are y'all faking it? I blame you. You need to give the proper feedback. If he doesn't know what he's doing, because they're learning. And I'll say it sometimes with these guys. I'm like, where did you learn that?
Good. Great question. Great question.
Where is this coming from? I go, no woman likes it. They go, yeah, she does. I go, no, they don't. I'm like, is this from HBO or Cinemax? What are you talking about?
Yes, and yes.
It's sad.
Those are the graduate programs for sexual nuance.
Get slow sex. You should interview her. You should read it and go find that woman and interview her.
I'm definitely going to get. I've got a fresh batch of Audible credits that need to be used.
Oh, it's such a good book. I love how she reads it too, and she uses language that was a little unsettling for me. I'm not, softy. I'm not, whatever. But I was like, oh wow. I mean, she said cock a whole lot. I was like this. It's just constant. I was like, okay. And then she explained it. She's like, she uses these words. She used a lot of NLP. And then she explained why she was using the word. She went, oh my God. So I learned a whole lot about men, really, things I didn't know. And so I called up all my guy friends. I'm like, they're like, yeah. I had no idea. So I learned a ton too. I was like, I had no idea this is how you guys thought about it. And they're like, yeah. I was like, listen, the book is so good. So good.
I know what's going on. I got a road trip this weekend, so.
No, you'll like it.
I'll make sure to have it turned down, though. If I'm in public, I want to hear, people
yeah, you have to, yeah. I mean, it's not porn, but she does get into technique. So she's telling you technique, and so she's got to, tell you the techniques. It's an actual technique, so it makes the masculine mind very happy.
Great.
But I instantly was like, listen, baby, we need to get this. I need you to get this book, and we need to do this thing. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. I'll definitely do that.
No, it's good.
And what was the other one? Biology of
Belief, Bruce Lipton. That's an old school, it's you have to listen to that.
Good.
It's so good.
It would be good to contrast the other one.
Oh yeah, but they're both about.
I should say complement. I should say complement the other, rather.
Yeah, they're both about. There's nothing.
Introspection.
Yeah, and sex is about presence. I mean, in our culture where we're bouncing all over the place and seem to have the attention span of, little gnats, like the most incredible transformative sexual experiences require you being present with another human, present with yourself, and you're being embodied and not dissociated. And part of why people are avoiding sex so much and pleasure so much is because they're so disembodied. They're trying to check out of the body so much because of the pain and suffering that we talked about. And my whole kind of shtick where I'm moving in my career, I'm speaking about it next 2 weekends at Jay Campbell's conference, is pleasure. I talked about it to 2,000 doctors a few months ago at Echo in functional medicine, that it's pleasure is the ultimate healer. And we're so focused on fighting pain, killing bugs, killing parasites, eradicating a disease, burning and cutting things away, instead of, so we're focused on the pain and the problem versus
reactive
joy, the pleasure, and that's one of the most powerful healing things, laughter, connection, community, joy, bliss, orgasms. This is where the power is. Not in fighting the death. It's moving into the life, moving into the orgasm, really. So that's my new thing. I've been writing about all that. I speak about it now, and then people come up to me, they're like, "So, are you a sex therapist?" I'm like, "Not at all, not at all. I'm just telling you, my patients, when they get, MS, Lyme, mold illness, Alzheimer's, dementia. Well, the Alzheimer's people are super horny. That's a different group. So. They're super horny. Most people stop having sex. Like that's the first thing that goes. It's like they'll say, "Oh, I haven't had sex in 10 years." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. Like they cut off that whole part, and women don't understand because no one's explained their bodies to them what happens physically during an orgasm, and those chemicals heal you physically. There's nothing stronger. A woman's orgasm blows flow state out of the water. Flow state can't even remotely compare to what I can do. And, you poor guys can only do one. Really, you got to wait a while. I can do 10 in 10 minutes. There's no end to me. You know what I mean? There's no end to what the clitoris can do.
Yeah.
But men don't have that. But women can. We amplify. I take whatever you give me and I'm going to multiply it and make it better. I'm going to make it bigger. That's what the feminine can do. That's my job. Honey, you're making a big deal out of it. That's my job. That's what I do. I'm extra.
Now we're framing it in a good context.
That's what happens. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you guys picked up on that. So what was it like implementing your changes in beliefs and things you stood for in practice? Talking about being on missionary trips and, behind the curtain eating meat and being unvegan, and then conversion.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got this newfound sense of having come to Jesus, let's say, and how you were now pregnant, you become a mother, life has changed. Like, oh my God, I got to tell everybody about this. What do I do? How do I keep it, how do I not infect everyone I know with the Holy Spirit, so to speak? And then how do you bring that into practice carefully, delicately, cautiously, or not? And, is there backlash from your community, from your peers, the system, all that stuff, like being a businesswoman, being, in practice, being, in public and with personal relationships, professional relationships, like all of that.
Well, I believe, again, that we see what we believe. And so my reticular activating system in my brain, I didn't see any hate. I don't anticipate problems. So if there was a problem somebody had with me, I could care less. So I don't even see it. So it was no issue for me. But I did have the benefit of this. So because my pregnancy was so high risk and I was hemorrhaging blood at 4 weeks, at 6 weeks in, they put me on 6 weeks bed rest. And that wasn't enough to this is still not good. I was losing so much blood and so anemic and so hypotensive. And I had 2 practices and was renovating 2 houses and blah, blah, blah. And it was a moment of, you need full-time care. And I said, well, if I'm going to have to be watched all the time and I might die. I'm going home to Detroit with my mother. So I went home to Detroit, and after couple, like another month, I'm like, this ain't, you're done. You need to kind of, you can't drive, and you can't drive, you can't do, like, it's not safe. So I had to shut down my practices, sell the houses, everything from a bed remotely. Friends in Atlanta, I was like, listen, I'm not coming back. It's not good. Like, and I wrote letters, Jake, if I died, so people could open them. Like my I love you goodbye letters. I didn't tell people, but I had them ready. So I sold everything. So then I got rid of everything. So I stopped working, and I thought I'd go back to work I thought I'd stop breastfeeding it too and open again. That was kind of like, well, if I make it, this is what's going to happen. That didn't happen. So I didn't go back to work until he went to kindergarten. So I had 6 years off. So in that time, only my tightest friends kind of knew me or whatever. So really, it just wasn't a thing. So when I reopened, I was like, well, I'm in debt and have no money. I guess I'll open another practice because I literally have no idea what else I'm supposed to do. Like, how are we going to do this? But we're just going to do it. So I kind of started all over. And at that point, it was kind of mostly new people. And my friends, the chiropractors who knew me, they're like, damn, I can't believe you eat meat. But they were like, we're so happy you do. It was more like, thank God, like, you look better, you sound better, like I was worried about you. It was kind of like that. So I was embraced by the doctors, and my mentors were ecstatic. Like, thank God, we were so scared. All the men who were my mentors, they all told me to stop doing it. Stephanie, it's not okay. Please eat meat. I'm like, no. So most of them, I just thanked them. Thank you for always standing by my side. Never, telling me lovingly, but also always taking care of me anyway. And I just hit it. And it just was a part of the story. It actually helped so many patients. Like, wait a minute, you were a vegan? Can I bring my girlfriend to you? Can you talk to her, please? So eventually I just started converting. People would bring them to me. So I've had many, many, many 20-year vegetarians and vegans that are like even carnivores now, but they would convert. As I'm showing them their brain maps and showing them their labs, I'm like, listen, I understand where you're at. I went there. I was there too. It took until I saw all of this and finally hit this rock bottom place. And so because I could have those conversations with them and guide them gradually in the process, it really was no big deal. And if anybody has a problem with it, I'm kind of the, 0 F's given category. Like, I don't need your opinion of me. I don't need you to like me. And I say this to my patients, I say this to students, I say this to doctors. I said, it's not my job to have you like me. It's my job to help teach you how to get yourself better. And I'm going to say some things that maybe you don't like. I don't care. I love you enough to have you dislike me. You can be mad at me. You can be mad all you want. You go home and motherfuck her. Dr. Rimka. I don't care. I'm going to tell you the stuff that people are afraid to tell. The weak people won't tell you the truth. Yeah. I don't need you to like me. I need you to love yourself enough, and I'm going to love you so hard. I'm going to be like that tough grandma, that tough auntie, that is telling the truth. Like, girl, but I'm going to tell you, you have toilet paper on your shoe, you have a booger out of your nose. I'm not going to let you walk around like a fool. So I don't need that from them. And I tell them that up front. You can be mad at me all you want. I'm going to tell you something maybe no one's ever told you before, but you need to hear it. And so usually 9 times out of 10, they do come back. And occasionally I get it. They will walk out the door. But I sometimes will have to say, Jake, I may only have one opportunity to tell you this. You may never come back. I'm going to take my chance because I need to be able to sleep at night. I have to look in the mirror at myself every day. So I'm not going to lie to you or string you along to get more appointments out of you. So this is what we need to talk about, and this is how it is. So I'm pretty upfront, and that's my way of doing things. And I'm not in this business. I didn't come in this world to make people. Once I figured out how to love myself, I don't need anybody else to love me. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help. I'm here to help people find themselves, know thyself. And sometimes that's ugly. I went through the process myself. I know it's hard, but everybody thinks they're going to go into their unconscious or know thyself and find piles of crap, but really you're going to find diamonds. I'm like, no, but what if all you found were jewels? Like, we have to go down in there and go get the diamonds. They're just covered up in dirt. That's what I'm saying. So I had to be taught that. I had to learn how to do it. So that's what I do with them. So ultimately, no, there was no blowback. And if anybody has any problem with me, I could care less. Let's go. I mean, I get the vegans after me online. That's a whole problem. They are the most hateful, vicious group of people. I wasn't like that. I don't know. This whole new vegan is like
the aggressors. Yeah,
they're so violent. I have never seen anything like it. I've never had people wish murder and rape upon me and my son by the thousands.
God,
they're disgusting.
It's like funny to me because like I would almost stereotypically think it would be the carnivores that would be the aggressive, bloodthirsty, axe-toting, like fuck you to
no, isn't it weird?
Yeah, I'm like, hey man,
I'm totally soft. Want me to tell you something crazy? I'm going to tell you something crazy because I'm trying to understand this. And like, I don't know what you know about me, what your viewers know about me. But so I'm bisexual. So I've been with women since college. And then I got married to a man. And then I left him. And I was only with women for 18 years. Okay? 18. I left him when I was pregnant. I was like, we done. I'm not doing this anymore. That was what I knew. I'm like, I'm done and I'm done. Okay? So the whole pregnancy, I left him. That's when we were getting the whole thing done. So after eating carnivore for a few years, I'm with the first man I've been with now in 18 years. I was like, I don't know. Suddenly I'm like, I'm really confused right now because why is he good looking? Like, why does he smell good? I'm like, what's happening right now? It was the strangest thing that happened. Like, I'm so much more feminine. I wear dresses and heels and started buying all this new stuff. I'm like, I never had painted nails. I don't even know what's happened to me. I was like, how is eating all this meat made me want meat? I don't understand what's happening right now. So we literally joke about it. Like Christopher Shade of Quicksilver, we're like, what? Can you explain this? So it did this whole different, I tell you, like I never felt more myself, more my divine self. I'm softer. I'm way more feminine. People have watched it on my social media. They'll know I've become way more feminine. I'm much softer as I got deeper carnivore. Isn't that wild?
That's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of and my friends, I was really ashamed. I'm calling them like, listen, I don't know. It's like a second coming out. And they're like, well, you were always bisexual. I'm like, no, but I haven't been. I go, and then I'm like, we're going to go on a date. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know what to do. They're like, yes, you do, girl. It'll all come back to you. I'm like, will it? I'm like, because there's like a penis. And I haven't seen a penis in a really long time.
This is great.
I know, isn't that wild?
This is so great. Yeah.
And so I keep thinking there's a whole, I need to come up with some memes about it.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know what, I'm not really creative
this
like
is
that.
some novel territory to me. Like I've yet to hear this one. You know,
it's true. Cool. Now men look good to me, and literally, and he, like my boyfriend will always say stuff like, "Well, baby, I know if you need to get some women, you could, you can do that because I know you're probably going to miss." I was like, really? But then I'm like, I'm not even attracted to women anymore. I don't know what to do with myself. It's very strange. The lesbians are very upset right now. The lesbians are like, did we lose you? I'm like, I don't know. I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure if I want soft and pretty anymore.
God, this would be a hell of a frontier to unpack. I mean, if that, like to think about what that does to chemistry or attraction or.
I know.
Tell me, like, I mean, first off,
because it's hormones and spark, right? But you would 100%. Think like testosterone would be higher.
I'm not going to say I'm not surprised because to me, on all levels, the single most effective thing we can do as human beings in regard to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths.
Yeah.
Now, it's not saying it's healthy or unhealthy to be asexual, bisexual, pansexual, whatever, but just the fact that you feel like a conscious change there and that this feels right and it doesn't feel weird and doesn't feel wrong and feels natural and organic. And the only thing that changed was what you were eating. It's like, well, let's unpack that and just.
I know.
This would be a great study to run.
I know.
I need 10,000 people.
We don't.
I need 10,000 people to do an RCT with and to do an FFQ with. Like, this would be amazing. And to be like, look, I don't want to scare you, but like, you might not be as gay as you think. You might not be as bi as you want. You might not be as straight. as you think.
Yeah.
Like, who dares test their sexuality?
Yeah, birth control pills, right, change the way women feel about. We know it changes their sense of smell and all this stuff. So I was like, what was I doing to myself exactly? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure there still is this bisexuality in me, right? Like,
Sure.
You know, like I get it, right? But it's like this really weird thing, because when he said that, I thought, oh my God, this is the perfect man. He'll let me be with women. I can do this thing I want to do. We'll have threesomes. I'm like, this is fantastic. This is my dream life, right? And I'm like, I don't even want it, honey. He was like, what? He's like, really? I'm like, I don't even want it. Like, I don't even, like, I'm not even sure.
This was the best conversation ever, and it changed.
Yeah, no, but like, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, Jake, it's like a real thing where I think about this a lot. Like,
how long did it take? Like, how long into change of the diet did that start to, you know?
Oh God. I'd say it's like 4 years or 5 years. Like, I'm really not.
So it was a minute. It was a minute.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't like 30 days and all of a sudden like, oh my God, the guys look totally different now. Okay.
Mm-mm.
I think that's one of the most interesting things I've yet to hear.
And the biggest thing was definitely smell. Like, suddenly, and I can pick up, like, I've been in place and I'm like, like I can smell the testosterone in a man. I'm like, that guy? I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, it's like, oh, I know you got it rocking. You're like a 1200. I can smell it. I can literally, you know.
The only thing that I can remotely relate to this with is thinking back in the military and knowing when there's a female around. For us, it's like you know. Like in the Marine Corps, like we could be anywhere. It could be like, let's say on ship, especially, and there's like 2 women on the boat, you know, and they know that they are, but it's like you could be anywhere on the boat and be like, she's nearby.
Yeah,
like you would know that, like, she was close. You could either smell her, or it was some type of a feel, or just an awareness to where.
No, it's the hormones. There's
a woman near.
Yeah.
And when I went to undergrad at FIT in New York, and I was a very small population of student there. I was a male, number 1. I was a straight male, number 2, and I was older than most people. So I was a pretty much one of one in the student body. And I would ask girlfriends of mine and say, do you think they know, like, when I'm around? Because I'd be the only guy in a lot of the classes, and I'd be the only guy in the cafeteria sometimes, the only guy in many places. And I'd be like, do you think they know that I'm, and they're like, yes, they definitely know. I'd be like, are you sure they know? They 100% know that you're around. You know, There was just this cool understanding of, like, again, awareness, like sexual awareness, that was just based on the disparity of population, you know, or like the difference between us. Like, how was that sense heightened when I was a Marine? I don't know. You know, it just clicked. And then how is it different when the roles were reversed? I don't know. But I got to have this little, like, window peek into, like, oh my God, this is what this feels like. Whoa, this is a weird world. This is a big role reversal for me. I was very much a fish out of water. I was now, like, introverted and kind of closed off and like, okay, like, I'm going to try to tread softly because I feel like I'm behind enemy lines here, and I'm being afforded a very privileged position and glimpse into a world of which a straight man, is rarely ever afforded. And to just be there was just like, man, this is the trip to be here. But to think, like, diet, like, I've yet to hear this, you know, hearing people heal this changed, you know, I've lost weight, I improved this and that, I can have children again. But to have your sexuality be influenced one way or another, I've never heard that. But at the same time, I'm not surprised by it, because I truly, truly, truly believe everything that goes in there has power. You know, and what we can get out of what we nourish ourselves with is remarkable. And the fact that, I don't know, I'm like I said, I'm not surprised by the fact that it happened, but I'm just wowed to hear. Yeah,
I know.
A trip.
It is.
So what's new? What's upcoming? What's on the horizon for you before we get you out of here? Because I know you're extremely busy, and we're grateful for your time today, Dr. But where, you know, what's on the
new and upcoming. So, gosh, I wish I could pause to edit a book. So I've written a book basically about femininity, and it's called Receive, The Art of Feminine Power. And it was kind of my coming into 50 years old, like what I think, part of it. So we have the food that, like you're saying, carnivore, but there's also this age thing, right? Like there's a lot to be said. So I was very conscious going into turning 50. Carnivore was a part of that story, right? But and I'm sure it plays into it because how I was nourishing myself, like with the greatest thing I could be nourishing myself and is continuing to heal myself. I was very conscious about turning 50 and what was that going to mean as a woman. In our culture, there's a lot you have to push up against with aging and looks and beauty and my husband, and I'm still single, and I did a safari in Africa. I ran a healing retreat there, and in that, one of my huge breakthroughs was, I want to get married. What? Like, I'm the runaway bride. I don't want commitment. I like to be perpetually single or whatever, And so this whole different sense of my awareness of commitment. So I need to edit this book. I want this book to get out. I'm writing a second one about like kind of the importance of beauty for women in terms of well beyond like beauty as a feeling and a divine right. And it's kind of in contrast to the uglification of the world. It seems like we're being forced that ugliness and perverseness is good. I used to model decades ago, and when we walked the runway, we smiled. Now everybody looks like a heroin addict, like it's a very different world. Architecture used to be beautiful. Now they all look like prisons. So they're teaching us, that's $3 million. So it's pretty like, it's a prison. It looks like a prison. I don't understand how that's supposed to be pretty, but that's what we're getting taught now. So anyway, it's really about hormones and peptides and bioregulators. That's what the book is ultimately about. But it's kind of the ultimate guide for women. So I'm working on that. I teach a lot about peptides and sell courses there. So peptides are finally exploding, even though we've been using them for decades in practice. Now they're being talked about all over the place. Yeah. So I think, me teaching more doctors and getting more clinicians competent and bringing peptides in their practice, because you'll get much better results. So that's on the rise. I would like to find a way to take a little bit more time off. I'm a little bit addicted to working. I really like it. So it makes it a little hard for me to learn new things. Like, Jake, I want to learn how to play pickleball. And I need to find a way to not feel guilty about taking time off to go play pickleball, right? So those are some of the things. But in the meantime, I'm just, enjoying life. I'm enjoying being in love and dating and doing a new thing and finding myself in that process. I'm going to keep exploring pleasure. I'm going to be teaching more about the power of the female orgasm and seeing how I can leverage that in clinical practice, and teach other doctors and coaches to start leveraging pleasure and play and fun in their practice. Start prescribing that. Maybe they need more, play and enjoyment instead of another pill. What if they don't need another supplement? What if they need, to take time out with their husband and go play pickleball? When's the last time you guys did something fun together? When's the last time you went on a date? So with a lot of couples that see me, I end up prescribing steak and sex. Husbands love me. They're like, wait a minute. Are you telling me you want me to eat some steak and we have more sex? Is that what she's saying? I said, that is 100% what I'm saying. Your wife has cancer. She needs more steak and more sex. Do you think you can do that for me? Dr. Rimka, I can do that for you. Yep, I can do that. I said, great. Yeah. But it's kind of like they needed me to give them permission. Sure. Like this was okay. And everything didn't need to be centered around the cancer treatment. Sure. What if you could have fun? What if you could play more? And we've devalued rest and play in our culture. So that's where I think I'm going to kind of teach, like, no, this is really important. Beauty is important. Music's important. Poetry is important. You are not wasting time. And the American Western culture wants to turn you into a factory slave, and that you're just supposed to be productive all the time. And so that's a whole slave prison kind of mentality culture that I'm working towards getting better at teaching people to give them some freedom.
How to not be sick, scared, and stupid.
No, that would be the exact opposite, right?
Yeah. Freaking nail on the head. Well, thank you so much Dr. Rimka. It's been educational and enlightening to have you here. It's been a real cool breath of fresh air for everybody. We'll have Dr. Rimka's notes in the show notes, where to contact her, where to work with her, how to follow along with her on various social media platforms. And just to say thank you again for taking the time with us. We know you're busy and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jake. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I mean, we need a lot more of you guys out there. And I want to say that from the bottom of my heart as a woman. I like big, strong alpha men like you, keeping people like me safe. So thank you.
As best we can do with our tongues. So for another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid, I'm your host, Jake Thomas. Thank you all for joining. We'll see you next time.